Y'all are going to get me monologuing because you've accidentally stumbled upon my actual area of expertise. Credentials are that I hold a Master of Public Administration, or MPA. I am a Certified Fundraising Executive, or CFRE, and I've been working in the nonprofit space for a little over a decade now. Endowments are complicated beasts, but for the purposes of this question, you can break it down into unrestricted and restricted funds. Unrestricted is exactly what it sounds like. It can be used for pretty much anything as long as it's furthering the purposes of the university and at the direction of whoever controls the endowment, usually a board of directors or a subcommittee of the university board. All just depends on the structure of that particular organization, their size, etc. And then there's restricted funds, which is exactly what it sounds like. But restrictions come in all shapes and sizes. The most common restriction, of course, is donor restricted, meaning that a donor said, I'm going to give you $1 million to endow this chair or this professorship or this scholarship. There's also time restricted donations, things that can only be used through a certain amount of time or that are restricted for like 5 years to a certain purpose and then released to unrestricted funds after that. All this is governed by gift contracts with the donor or by decisions by the board of directors in their various meetings, that sort of thing. But a couple of points that are salient here. Restricted funds, as you noticed, are done by decisions from the decision makers, and those same decision makers can change their mind or make different decisions. So if a board has restricted some funds for some purpose, they can unrestrict it or they can repurpose it. You can go back to a donor and say, hey, I know that you gave us $1 million for this building and we built the building, but we have some more growth on your principals, so can we go ahead and repurpose it for something else? Those things totally happen all the time, and a good fundraiser, good advancement officer is going to make sure that that is an ongoing conversation with any major supporter. Also, these endowments are almost always marketed as rainy day funds. Like you go to donors and you say, hey, we want to make sure that the university can do things in perpetuity no matter what happens. So it's not weird to go to the supporters or to the board of visitors, and say, hey, we have this nest egg and we have this problem. Can we possibly attack it with the endowment? Also, as I mentioned in my economics update, university endowments are doing really well because the markets have been doing so well for years now. So in 2024, Columbia University had an 11.5% return on their endowment. And the first half of 2025 has yielded that same return, an 11.5%, for most university endowments, 500 million plus. And that includes all the universities that you've been hearing about so far. UVA, who just fired their president, Jim Ryan, and Harvard, who's getting ready to settle for $500 million, and Columbia. The average 25-year return has been 6%, so they've had huge growth, which means they have resources to use. Also, in the Big Beautiful Bill, there was a provision that was going to tax endowments at a higher rate, and it ended up getting stripped out, so they also just dodged that taxation bullet. So what I'm trying to say is the purpose of these endowments is to insulate these higher ed institutions from outside forces. And you saw a lot of this during the pandemic as well, where people were still unwilling to touch what's called the corpus or the principle of the endowment because it wasn't enough of a crisis yet. But if a global pandemic or a tyrant in the White House isn't enough to break the glass box, then what is? What exactly are we waiting for to finally start using this endowment to insulate the higher ed institution from a rainy day? My theory is that these endowments are only possible because of the markets, and the markets are only possible because of the consumers that drive them, and we, the people, are those consumers. So it would be nice if those who benefit so much from our labor going into the markets would step up and defend democracy on our behalf. End lecture.